And
You're gonna say hello.
welcome
To
Game off.
Nerd!
I like it.
There we go.
Ladies and
JP
gentlemen,
has his...
I am on a delay. It's very annoying, and I'm sorry about it. I can't help it. The hamster and the Amish guy are what I don't know what the fuck, excuse me, what the hell they're doing. Pardon my French. Rohan, we're here to review something, the year of 2024. Or please take it from here.
Yes, we will take it from here, JP. Thanks. JP lives in Amish country, so his internet is run on a hamster wheel, so he's a little behind.
And his audio is replaying everything that's been said.
Yeah, but we'll persevere here. We are here, as he said, to review kind of 2024, right? And with us today, we've got Dan's X-Men Comics. Dan, what's up? How you doing? And then we were able to pull Mike away from, what's the video game again, Mike? Baldur's Gate
3. Yeah, we got a PlayStation 5 for Christmas, so I might just never make a YouTube video ever again.
There you go. Now, was Baldur's Gates 1 and 2 as equally engrossing to you?
No, I mean, you're going way back now. You're going back a long time ago. No. I mean, they were great, but not like this.
All right. Well, in the 2025,
it doesn't take much, honestly. I love video games, especially like RPGs. So,
in the 2025 review episode, we'll make sure Mike is on here to review Baldur's Gate 3 because we'll be reviewing. But let us start with first. We'll say a couple hellos here. We've got Manu 9.9's with us.
Manu.
Ryan Colossus is with us.
Hell yeah.
We got Big Nasty's with us. So we got a few people on. So thanks for joining us. But yeah, we do want to kind of talk about 2024. I know there's been a number of channels that have done this same exact thing. So thanks for joining us. But I think to start, I just want to kind of go around the room and kind of talk about how 2024 was for us personally within this hobby, right? Kind of when it comes to collecting, the experiences, anything that related to the hobby that happened to you in 2024. Let's kind of talk about what were the highlights of. Dan, why don't we start with you?
I got completely sidetracked from all my goals.
What were those goals?
I mean, I did get to complete the goal of Vincent. What up? I did get to complete the goal of seeing you guys at Terrificon, and that was the number one thing.
There you go.
And like in 2023, I had other goals that were just very loose, just kind of like psychological based, like, don't buy a comic that is, at like, for example, spend more time with family, less time doing nothing with comics, just flipping through my boxes. So that was all good. But for 2024, I wanted 2 big books, Hulk 181 and or Giant Size X-Men Upgrade. And I just bought a bunch of different Mark Jewelers and a bunch of other like $50 to $100 comics, and like did not save. And I justified all that by saying, well, this is a great deal. I could sell these and then get that money and more back. But my funds were just dwindling the whole way.
Hey,
but I mean, I'm happy. I like the books. I like the books that I got. But
all right, and then talk a little bit more about what were some of your favorite parts about Terrificon then.
Oh gosh, I mean, well, of course, seeing you guys was awesome. It was just nice to have like a little vacation where I really got to dedicate my full geek out for the weekend. And I have a family, so normally I'm just doing the love the family. But it was nice to have time for myself to just enjoy that. And so I mean, that was amazing. You guys have talked it a whole bunch about all of those highlights. And I think that Terrificon for me was kind of like the MCU around like the Avengers Endgame stuff. It was just, everything was so epic and everything worked out incredibly perfectly that I just feel like there's no way we could top something like that. Like I'm trying to set the bar lower for this year's meetup.
So you're thinking now this year when we talk about going to Heroes Con, you're thinking like there's no way we can top what we just did.
I really doubt it. It'll be great and I'll do it. And that's my main goal this year. But yes.
All right.
No way.
All right.
No way.
Mike, let's hand it over to you. I will say, Mike, we talk about like the Terrificon. You get to have being in the Northeast where you are. It seems like you're having these experiences quite often. Maybe not as big as Terrificon, but there's something going on, all the time. I mean, looking at all the videos you have. So for you, experience-wise and collecting-wise, how was 2024?
Well, that's so I had a couple goals. They were to get some bigger books, and I would say I exceeded those goals. I got my X-Men #1, and then a whole lot more I didn't think I'd get. So from the collecting standpoint, yeah.
Real quick, going into 2024, you probably thought you were wanting for the X-Men 1. Was there anything else that you were thinking about specifically
that I got?
No, that you were.
I know
like,
X-Men 4 was. Yeah, I know X-Men 4 was still on my list. See, it's hard to remember. Like which things.
No, I do remember Daredevil 1 was on your list, and you didn't.
Daredevil #1, you're right. And Daredevil #1. So I got both of those, and then I got a whole bunch of other great stuff. So collecting wise, I definitely exceeded my expectations. One thing that didn't happen, I said I wanted to do more live streams. I did 0. Mostly not because I haven't got around. I haven't got around to it. It's just like I have to learn how to do it. I need to set up StreamYard and do all that. And it's just whenever I think about doing it, and it would be easier in some cases instead of editing a whole video. I put so many hours into editing those videos. It'd be so easy for me to do like for my roundup videos, just like, hey, I'm not gonna do a video this week. I'm just gonna jump on for an hour instead of nickel and diming every little piece of footage I have. And get it down to half an hour. I could just go off and talk to people and show books off in like my spare time. It'd be so much easier. So I wanted to do more of that, and I did none of it. I should do it for 2025, but I'm worried I'm going to come to the same conclusion and just like it's a commitment to make it happen.
Well, you were on a number of lives for other people's channels.
Oh, I'm in lives all the time. Yeah. I love it because I don't have to do anything. There's no work involved. I just come down here and just jump on. They're great. I love it when you guys do this. So I want to do some more myself would be great. But I don't need to because I feel like I get my fill, by jumping on all of your streams. So collecting was great. Live stream changes weren't that great. I did read a little bit more like I wanted to. But yeah, for me, the highlights were definitely the big experiences. Yeah, I go to cons all the time. I went to everything. Terrificon, which I always go to, is always great. But it was special. And Dan, I think you got it right. A lot of times, you play things up in your mind and they don't really work out. They're not as great as you expect them to be. There's problems that come up, and none of that happened. I mean, we had a great time. Other than being exhausted and a little hungover on that second day, I had a fantastic time. It really was. It did live up to the hype for us, just hanging out. And I think a lot of that is the venue. You're in the hotel that the convention's at. You're seeing these people all around. It's self-contained. You see these artists like all over the place, and then, at night you have a million things to do. In the morning, you have a million things to do. If you're at a convention where you travel and you're staying off-site, you're not going to have that experience. No way. I mean, you're not going to bump into Walt Simonson at a diner in the morning. So there's a lot of that, to bounce around to different people's rooms and stuff. And it was really cool. So that was Yuri. I don't know if we're going to be able to top that. But from a traveling standpoint, I got to travel a bit, and I went to Portland, and I went to the Pacific Northwest where you guys are, and that was great because, I didn't like that con nearly as much as a lot of the ones out here, but I got to hang out with a ton of the people that we know up there. I mean, there's a ton of you guys up there, and it was great. And I had just a great time visiting family, but that was a really special time as well. So I reinforced a lot of my friendships in the hobby this year. I'm sort of doubling down on that in 2025. I always say it's not about comics anymore. It's about the people I share the hobby with. So 2024, definitely big bounds and strides in that regard. And JP's gone entirely. So.
The hamster got off the wheel.
Just to, if you don't mind, Rohan, I was going to say, like, you've said this before, Mike, like it's about the people, it's not about the comics. And like before, I think when you said that, maybe it was like last year, I remember just thinking like, it's about the fucking comics, dude. Like, but I guess like just after hanging out with you guys, like it, there really is like, and then Rohan's always said, it's about, spend your money on experiences. It's not all about the comic. Well, I was so hardcore about comics, about collecting them and increasing the value of my collection. I'm realizing how much more fun it is to be just, open to meeting new people. And that really does open the doors up to increase your collection, afterwards as a sort of byproduct of that.
All the big books I got this year were because of connections of people I know. And when I look at the books, like, it's a cool book, but I think about how I got that. And with very few exceptions, they were through people like you guys. Like, I mean, like Rohan, I got that X-Men 1 because of you. You connect me in the right way. You know what I mean? Like, that's how that
Rohan's
happens.
the plug for sure.
Yeah. So that's my point, right? It's about the people you share with, and it's funny how you just fall into books. I'm not saying they're given to you, so have to work hard for them and spend a lot of money, but people know what you like, they know what you want, and you get to know people, and it makes collecting a heck of a lot easier. And for people, I know obviously I'm lucky where I live, but when you have a community like this, I feel like the whole collector community is a lot smaller, and it feels like no matter where you live, you're able to access these really great books. So
yeah, and I want to add I want to say a couple things on a couple things we talked about. So it will be interesting kind of going back to what you were saying, Dan, about will Heroes Con live up? Because Heroes Con is not going to be that self-contained environment, right? We're going to be at a hotel that, is a couple blocks away. The convention's in its own convention hall. So, I think it'll still be great. And reason why I think it'll be great still, because when you take Terrificon and take all the things that we've talked about, my still favorite kind of period of time that we had at Terrificon was the very first night where, Mike, you brought a number of those local beers from where you're from. And I think, was it your room or was it Colossus's room?
I remember in Brandon's room.
Yeah, you were in Brandon's room, and we were just hanging. And that's that picture that we have where the group of us that are sitting on all the beds.
Yeah.
And like, sure, we were talking about some comics, but like, we weren't in the convention hall. We weren't meeting artists. Like, it was just like the 10 of us hanging out in a hotel room. And that was my absolute favorite part of the trip. That's my favorite 100%. Picture from the trip.
100%.
It was so good. And what's really cool about that, I think a lot about, is, when we think about friends we've made in lives, let's say prior to coming into this hobby, right? You typically make friends with people that align with you on a lot of different perspectives and spectrums that are involved in your life. We all connected here on one specific thing, right? It is this comic hobby. And so when you think about this experience going into it, there is a line of thought where you can think like, well, we all love comics, but will we actually get along when we're doing things that's what I'm saying? Like when we're actually together and, there's more things to like, but that you would have thought, at least I can say this, you would have thought after that weekend that we had all known each other for years, the way how swimmingly it all went, which was great. And so that's why when with Heroes Con, when we're talking about it's not in that self-contained environment, I still have faith that I think we'll still have just as good of a time.
We'll just have to be a little more creative in how we make those moments happen. But like I agree with you. Like we do all know each other from online and we talk all the time, and it was pretty effortless though. Like we all are like, it was like we'd known each other forever, right? It was very easy for all of us to hang out together. And yeah, you're right. That first night was I wish I drank a little less, but otherwise it was a really good time.
Yeah, I mean the most shocking thing was finding out how Mike and I are literally midgets compared to the rest of this group.
We are tiny. It's not we're not that tiny. Everyone else is gigantic.
Yeah,
Jeez, everyone's like over 6 foot. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dan, how tall Dan was? I didn't think Dan would be over 6 foot.
Normal height. Normal height, guys. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Ryan and Brandon are. Oh, and I mean, Big B's tall. Yeah, they're. Everybody's.
It's a large crew. Like I've heard, look like that picture that Brandon that posted it. I was like, who's the child in the middle? Like, I mean, it legit. Like Mike and I are like tiny compared to these guys.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's great. It's definitely like it feels like a team. Like we all have. We're all very different.
Yeah, it's like if you think of like Alpha Flight, like Mike and I are like Puck.
Come on now, guys.
Yeah, Colossus is Sasquatch.
Yeah,
JP's Namorita.
I'll add to that. Just talk real quick on my collecting side. I mean, I would say 2024 was definitely my best year in terms of like what the collection went to and what I was able to get. Now, that involved a couple things, right? Like I consolidate. I mean, I'm not a volume collector, but to do what I did, I consolidated down a lot. And then I also decided to kind of be done with kind of the card side of the hobby, which, I'd spread myself too thin, honestly. And being able to kind of trade those out is kind of helped me achieve what I achieved collecting wise personally. So, 2024 was a banner year for me, I would say. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, your collection is something that that I strive to get to at some point in my life. Like it's hard. It's too hard for me to let go of a lot of the books that I love, and not to mention, and I only collect like one type of thing, and not to mention the endorphin rush I get from making a purchase. That's something that I love, and it's hard to put that off for so long.
Yeah. And then I'll say in terms of other experiences, Mike mentioned the Portland trip he did, but Dan, you came to visit me up here. We met in Tacoma, went to that con for the day, which was awesome. Right. So it's like,
Totally.
now that we've kind of done it once, like the more opportunities that arise, like I would always be happy to kind of jump on those. Mike, I'm curious, any other kind of outside of the two you mentioned, any other big like highlight experiences that you had?
Yeah. Well, I want to add one other quick thing about Terrificon. It was a little surreal having my online friends with all the New England people, and like that was cool. Like because I know everyone from the hobby. It's kind of like, oh, you're hanging out with them. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's crazy that you guys are hanging out with them. But what's really neat is like when I see like you guys interacting with the 3 Men in a Basement guys and stuff like that. Like you guys like made friends with them and stuff, and like that's really cool. The fact that like I see these people in real life, and they're talking about you guys, like hanging out, like that's just like there's stories there. That's so neat. I have every once in a while I catch myself going, those guys live 3,000 miles away. That's pretty crazy that you have a fun story with those guys, Just a little something that made it special. One thing that 2024 that I want to point out, I just remembered I made another New Year's resolution, which was to your collecting style, Rohan, of less quantity, more quality. I wanted more big books, less of the smaller ones, unless they were books I was like reading. And I like immediately threw that away because I just like kept finding crazy good deals on collections, right? Like I'd hear about something, I go down there and someone give me a crazy offer, like $200, take 1,000 comic books. All right. And most of them, weren't worth a lot. But for the first time, I started selling a lot more flea markets. I actually set up a show towards the end of the year. I traded a lot of books, and those little deals that I did, even though I said I didn't want a lot of stuff and I still have a lot of crap behind me, I was able to leverage those through selling and trading into way more stuff than I thought before. So yes, absolutely. I want the bigger books and the more consolidated collection. I don't want the clutter, but sometimes it's a means to an end, and the little stuff got me a lot of the big stuff. So I think that was a good New Year's resolution for me to break, because when there's a good collection comes up, you have a good opportunity, you get to jump on it. So
yeah, and I mean, Mike, that doesn't doing what you did though, like it still lives within the vein of like your kind of quote unquote lunch money, right? Like
that's it.
You like you said, you leveraged those opportunities into, which is what everyone should, ideally wants to do, which is great.
Right. And that's why when I did a little top 10 short, because I don't want to make a big flex video of the biggest books. I said, I'll do a short, right? A minute, I'll do it. And sure enough, you get the comments going, those aren't lunch money books. I get that all the time, right? All the time. Right. Those books are so expensive. You spend a ton of money on those. And I responded to one of them. It wasn't like a mean one, but I said, actually, they are, because of the top 10 books I got, I think I traded for like more than half of them, like 6 or 7 of them. And all the rest, the money I got was from something cheap. If you were to actually add up the value I spent on all those books, it's nothing. It's wicked low. So, I mean, it is to the Lunch Money Comics spirit, even if it doesn't necessarily look like that. And that's part of the game, right? And that's part of the game and how to play it. And I think in 2025, I want to talk more about the game. No, I do. People always ask, this, oh, you're so lucky. It's not luck. It's hard work. You got to work your butt off.
I mean, that's the thing I talk about a lot is like when people say things like, oh, I could never afford that book or this book. Now, sure, there are some books that were probably, Superman 1 is probably, not something that I'm going to work my way up to right now, at least anytime soon. But in terms of that, take those out of the equation. It really is all about a function of how you set your priorities.
Yes. And
again, if you want to, you can, like you said, you can absolutely work for them, right? It takes a couple of things. It takes patience. And kind of one of the things Dan said, you do have to give up stuff to get up to those, right? And that's something a lot of people struggle with, which is totally understandable, and I totally get that. But again, if that's what you want, if that is a goal of yours and you prioritize it, that's how you can get there.
Yeah, it's
prioritizing.
I've gotten rid of this year stuff that I've wanted, or I wanted another copy. You know what I mean? And I just like, I want to hold on to it for a bit. And then the very next time I was trading or selling, all of those books that I want, that I loved, that I got, like, they're gone because people have the same taste. They know what's good. And I mean, but like, it was an opportunity there. It's like, oh, it's hard to let them go. But I knew ultimately it was the better move to let them go. You just have to get past that mentality. Because honestly, once you get that bigger book, you don't care. And you can just replace the older ones anyways, right?
And that's the thing too, I think that people should think about a lot is like those books we're talking about kind of getting rid of to help build up the pot. I guarantee you can find those same books for same deals, even better deals,
100%.
easily.
Case in point, First Apocalypse. I probably bought 4 copies of First Apocalypse, like number 5, extract number 5. No, 6. Sorry, not the cameo one, the full one. I probably bought like 4 or 5 of those. Every single one was a better condition one than the previous, and they were all cheaper than the one before it. And I want 2. I wanted 2 of them, right? Like Dan knows, right?
Oh, yeah.
Dan wants 3.
He wants 3, right? But immediately, as soon as I get it, someone wants it and they're willing to pay $10 more. Like, it happened 4 times, and like every time, like, oh, I don't want to do that. But my Dave Stevens stuff, like, JP, I know is into it. I still have the ones I want to keep, but a lot of them, an opportunity came up. A buddy of mine wanted all of them, and I'm like, okay. It was like 10 of them because I knew I could replace them, and I already have replaced like half of them already. You know what I mean? You just have to be able to, especially the way the market's kind of going down. Don't worry. Don't worry too much. If you move on a book, you can find it later, and you just have to get past that mentality of letting go. Which
I think that's the biggest thing right there. Like, letting go is really hard for me, especially if it's my one copy. But all the things we collect, you're right. We see them all the time. It's a good practice to let it go. See what comes back to you. Manu had mentioned, it's the memories are always yours. He even had like a mention at some point earlier this year where he said, like, do we really need to own the things that we love, or can we still love them and not have them in our collection?
Yeah,
I think it's
the memory. I can have the memory, unless you have a regret. Like, there have been things I've regretted and had to then have to replace. Like that TMNT number 1 that I had to replace that one after I traded it. But again, if there's a memory attached to it, it doesn't really matter. Like, again, when you're on your deathbed, hopefully when we're all really, really old, you're not going to think about like, man, that book, I wish it was a 2.5 instead of a 1.8. Like, you're going to remember where you were when you got it or hanging out with your friends. You probably won't be thinking about it at all, honestly. But, like, it's the memories you're going to have with those people. Remember, when I remember Terrificon, I'm not going to remember. I already forgot what I got. What did I get? I got Daredevil number 1. I don't remember anything else I got at that show, but I remember every moment I spent with you guys, and that's what's important. So, it doesn't really matter. It's the memories attached to them is more important than the actual physical.
I will also say too, like, to do what we're talking about. Another thing too, I would also stress. Now, I say this, and me and the 3 of us that are on right now, none of us are full-time dealers, right? We have other jobs that our income comes from, that we pay our bills with and whatnot. So when it comes to, sometimes you have to move something to get something, like, you may have to move 10 books to get 1 book, let's say. You can't be stuck that you have to profit on all 10 books. That's just not a reality in the comic book market, because the market, like we talked about, it's going down. Again, sometimes you have to be like, well, I got to eat a little bit on this, but at the end of the day, if it's bringing me the money that's going to get me to where I want to go, it's still worth it, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying you buy a book for 500 and sell it for 150. Like, that sucks, right? But like, too often I see people that are like, bought a book for 500 and they won't sell it for 475. They're like, well, I'm into it 500. It's like, well, it's not worth that. But it's like, that's $25 you lost. Consider that your cost of enjoyment. You're fine. It's going to get you closer to the next book that you want. You don't love this anymore. Move on.
Right. I'd love to hear JP's thoughts on that, because he's somebody who does have, a hard time selling at a loss, right? Like, it's hard. It's a hard mental barrier to get over, which is, I think, true for all of us. And I agree with you, Rohan, but there is something there that it is hard. Yeah. Right, JP?
I did. I had to sell my, I didn't have to sell it, but I sold my GSX-1. And that was one I know I way overpaid for, because it was we thought we were at the end of the boom and the prices were coming down, and we, bought correctly. And there was 3 or 4 books I bought in that 6 to year span that just have cratered. And, it was hard to just let it go for such a low price. And at least in my eyes, it was a pretty significant loss, I would say. You know, can you write it off tax purposes? Yeah, but you know, it just stunk that somebody got a good deal, and if I just would have waited, I would have got it. And I wasn't in love with that book enough to take that big of a loss. But you know,
What did you do with those funds, though, JP?
I bought a couch.
Oh, there you go.
You can use
Sometimes
that.
that's what you got to do, and then I'm sure
I
you're.
love that couch. I
Yeah,
sit
there
on
you
it
go.
every day.
Yes.
I watch Attack on Titan. I watch, you know, Last Man Standing. You name it. I love that couch.
Awesome.
You don't watch X-Men 97 though, do you? Gives
No,
you
he does. He will not watch
anxiety.
cartoons.
I can't. The only reason I watch Attack on Titan is my daughter makes us watch it and yells at us if we look at her phone during the show, and I'm like totally lost in that show. As cool as it is, I can't keep up with it. So
Yeah.
But-
Yeah. Awesome. No. So then like we can kind of move forward here a little bit, kind of taking it beyond our kind of personal scope. What were you guys thinking in terms of like, what were the kind of big storylines of 2024? I mean, it's hard to bring up this topic. And again, this by no means do we need to get into the weeds of every single scandal and detail of CGC, but like you can't talk about 2024 and not think like this was a year of just CGC falling on its face over and over and over and over again.
see, I thought the biggest story of 2024 was Jason Momoa and Lobo. Or was it 2025?
Wait,
I'm
was
not
that 2025 though?
Oh yeah, what was it? No,
What day
Glenn-
did that come out? I think that may have been 2025, JP. So we can talk about that next week in next week's show.
Nice.
That's
I mean, yeah, and I'm not a big, despite what you see behind me, I'm not a huge CGC proponent. I do use them. I have a couple times.
Let's go, Richard.
Damn you, Richard.
But I got but like, you know, like they automatically renewed my membership again, you know, like, so I'm kind of mad that happened. So I have $150 in credit. And honestly, looking, even before a lot of that stuff happened with them, I have nothing. I have no interest in sending something in, like zero. I just don't care. I don't want to deal with them ever again. If I find a book that's already graded and is in good shape, and that's part of the game, you know, that's part of the hobby. Sure, it's a known commodity. There's a service there, right? But using them, the idea of using them before was down for me. But now, like, I'm probably just not going to spend $150 in credit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm never gonna. I'm just in like. You see the wait times and the prices. I'm like, I have no incentive whatsoever to use them. Zero.
That I gotta
think-
say,
Well,
No,
should let
sorry,
Dan,
JP.
Dan's about to do a submission, aren't you, Dan?
because I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut JP off because he's delayed. But there is an incentive for me that the price, it makes me want to get my submission in before the price increase. And I mean, I know it's going to be a difference of like $20-$30 or whatever, but they
Yeah, but
got
it
me.
depends on
And
how
I've heard a
books
couple other people who, sorry, JP, go ahead.
When's it start?
It depends on how many books you have. If it's going to be 5 or 10 books and it's
Yeah.
$20, it's $100.
Yeah, I think 10-15 books or something like that. But it's
yeah. Yeah.
it goes into effect, I think, as long as your books arrive in Sarasota or like at the warehouse by something February
February
something.
11th or something like that. or
Yeah,
4th
and
or
I think
something like
January
that.
21st.
But that
is
means
when you need to
everyone's
have
going to
your
send everything
submission
in, which means
created.
their backlog is going to be even more.
Oh yeah, it will be. Oh yeah, totally. They got me. What can I say?
Yeah.
You know?
But Dan, are you worried about, because I'm taking it you're grading books that you're going to potentially turn around and sell, correct?
Yeah, that's pretty much like it's a good question. I don't even know why I'm sending a few
Well,
of
so
these
my
in because
question
of-
is,
yeah.
knowing that the market is still on its way down, or
Yeah.
it's still going down, if it takes 6 months to get those books back,
Oh god.
will you be
yeah.
losing, like the money you could have made had you had them graded now, be gone by the time you get them back?
There's no saying for sure, because in 6 months, if say some information about, you know, like if some other buzz comes up at that point, it could be, you know, good luck on my part that I had to delay, you know. It made sense about like delaying the but yeah, generally speaking, you're right. Like you want to flip as soon as possible. That's the only way to really
Like
make
take for
your money.
example, I mean, JP, you know, his favorite guy, Lobo, right? Obviously right now Lobo is on the hot 10 list like crazy. So if you have, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people that have 5, 10, 12 raw Omega Men
There
3,
you have it.
right?
Yeah.
Let's say that
Yeah.
they are in great condition. Like, oh, dude, I can hit 9/8 on these and I can turn these. You know, by the time you get, because Supergirl is not coming until late 2026. And so we're probably not going to see a trailer till early 20. It's like you get these books back. Let's say you get them back in June. Lobo kind of will have died off again until who knows when it comes
To
back.
use that as an example, you could still make the argument that you're only going to be able to sell a raw copy in near mint condition, or like even if it's 9/8 for a certain amount of money, 100 and whatever dollars, whereas what the 9.8 would sell for, 300 or something dollars.
Mhm.
So, but then you're taking the risk. Maybe you get a 9.6. Maybe you have to pre-screen. You still have to pay the money. You still have to wait. There's a lot of factors involved, right? But I'd say in general, that's a very small piece of the fraction that, or of the equation that we're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
I have I have a little bit of a dirty secret here. No, I don't personally. With this whole thing. So here's the problem. They're in Sarasota. They're in Florida. Now, Jeff from Comics Pod is a good buddy of mine. He's one of the best in the biz. But for some books, even after you press them in humidity, they will revert back.
Sure.
I know they have a climate-controlled, air-conditioned warehouse, sure. However, when things get backed up and they're down in Florida, whether they're in the mail taking a while to get there or they've been there a while, the books that have gotten back the longest, we've looked at them afterwards and have noticed that was not there. Or that was pressed out completely. It was like that for weeks at my house, and then all of a sudden now it's all back. There is a problem with keeping them in Florida, sitting somewhere for months at a time if a book is freshly pressed. And you can pay them to press it, which they do it right before, I'm sure, but like that stuff annoys me. It's another reason for me not to use them. It's like, why am I going to assume my book is a grade, assume that this is how good it is, and then get it back? Never mind the issues they're having with quality assurance, and then just having it go, oh, that's right, it's just been sitting around for a long time, God knows where, and it just doesn't look the same. That is very real possible.
Has Jeff said that there's anything you can do in that scenario, like press it, keep it in the press longer, knowing that it's going to sit there, or anything like that?
He keeps it as long as possible up to the last second, and it's and like and here's the thing, the ones that I've gotten back that were fine, like that were the best ones were the ones that had the expedited, or like the ones I got back the quickest. Like, it's not a coincidence, and again, it's kind of dirty because it's kind of like, if you press and clean a book, it should stay like that forever, right? In theory, it depends where you live is the answer, right? If you live in Phoenix, I doubt you have a problem. But if you live, in New England or in the Pacific Northwest, or God forbid Hawaii, like you're gonna have some serious humidity issues. So I worry about those books sitting down there for that long. I just don't want my books gone that long. That's the thing. You forget. How many people do you know will say, like, I don't even know what I have. Like, I haven't seen them in forever. Like, I could never do that. Like, not that I need to like fawn over the book, but just like it's in the back of your mind. Like, where is it?
Yeah, I mean, especially for the people that like submit frequently, like I'm sure that like I don't even know what's there. I mean, maybe it makes it fun when they come back because you got a little like, so what's in the box kind of thing. Yeah. But no, I totally and like I remember, JP and I both came in like on the tail end of the boom, and that was still the time when people were like, my book's been at CGC for a year and a half, and I remember hearing like, damn, that sounds awful. Like, like no, thank you.
Yeah, and you're risking it when you're shipping them. Like a lot of people are handling these.
Yeah, and as Manu's saying, like, yes, it shouldn't be a gamble. And how many people talk about so many books at CGC, and it's a gamble? And they're not just talking about the grade of the book. I mean, we have to consider the grade of the book because of how expensive it is to grade it. But between the shipping it securely and insured, and them not screwing it up and getting it back to you, and the time goes back, like, it's all a gamble. It's all a gigantic risk with something that's supposed to add value. No, it's gambling. You're rolling the dice. And
hell yeah, it's gambling, baby.
That's why Dan is setting us commission.
Not for me. No.
We love it. We love the gamble, baby.
Here's
love the gamble, Dan.
Here's a thought. Any of you guys ever get new gutters on your house?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. This guy shows up with a truck. The truck just pulls out the gutters as long as you need it, 50 feet, whatever. Why can't there be a guy or a gal in a truck with CGC, come to your house, evaluate your collection, put it together, print out the deal, pay them for it, right? And then they encapsulate it for you with the grade. and that's
Or
it.
have
Well,
several offices.
I will say, JP,
and locations.
again, when CGC does go to a con, they do offer an option of like get your book back sometimes by the end of the con. So you go there on Friday, you can pick it up on Sunday. Now, I've heard from a few people in that scenario, they have not done the best job. So I hear you. Like, it's kind of like when we talk about grading cards, it's a much simpler process, right? And I foresee, like, in the future, you'll be able to go to a shop and they'll have some kind of machine that you insert your card into, AI grades it, and then it spits out the slab on the other end, right? I don't think that's necessarily possible with comics, but there should be. I agree with you. There, whether it's a mobile concept but there should be a better option. I mean, even in the lone sense of like CGC should just open another office on the West Coast or in Europe or wherever. Like, the fact that it's just Sarasota and that's it is like kind of wild.
It's wild for a huge company like that. And when I think of people like David, it's only 35 cents. How many books he grades? He sends them from Australia. He sends them to the other side of the world. Like, that's insane to me.
Yeah.
Right. And if they had a more standardized grading, they say they do, but if you watch the videos of someone just like, no, it's sort of a tactile thing. They'll, like that. It's so wishy-washy. You would think that it would be like, because the way we all used to think it would be like, how many spine ticks does it have? How many are color breaking? What color are the pages? How many folds? How many color? Like, there was a way to quantify it and you could mark down. But they don't do that. They sort of just spitball it, which is why people, I think, are pretty good at guessing the grade. Like, all of us, you're like, oh, it's kind of like a 4 or 5, and it always is close because they're doing the exact same thing you are. The exact same thing. And that's very disconcerting. However, that also tells you you could do that anywhere. Anyone could do that any part of the world, unless they're going to standardize what they're doing for quality assurance. Who cares? It's still that you're still getting the label. That's what you're doing it for, right? You want the CGC label. So who cares where it comes from?
A lot of people work from home. What's the big deal? They were actually, I think it was CBCS was having them send books to their graders who were working from home.
That caused a big mess for them, though.
Correct. But if you just have a guy or a gal in various states and they just drive around to a collection or a comic book store, pick up a bunch of books, they live in that area, they go home, they have the equipment to grade them there, and that's their amount of books. And there's another guy or gal on the West Coast and East Coast of Pennsylvania or New York. South.
I'm not gonna lie, JP. I love the idea of the mobile truck situation. I think that's a pretty cool concept. Yeah. I really dig that kind of idea. Like that.
They might be worried about you trying to influence them too. Like if it's a personal thing, you can't just like sit over their shoulder.
Okay. Hey, no, that doesn't count.
No.
Uber grading. There we go.
Yeah,
they can pick you up, drive you to the hotel, and then
you're book slabbed by the time you're at your destination.
Maybe that would be something like if PSA wants to like really jump out. That's what they do. Like, we're gonna open one in every major city. You can just drop your books off and come back at the end of the day. Like, that would be
Well, I mean, that's another advantage PSA is going to have. They do have multiple locations. Like, even in the US, they have a West Coast location, they have a East Coast location. So Goober, yes, perfect. Yeah. So that is going to be an advantage. And they have like a location on the other side of the world too. So still 35 cents, doesn't have to send it across the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it comes down to money. We have these great ideas, but like, there's so much to it, like with it.
100%. And you're right in that sense that, like, I think CGC is too expensive, but when you really think about it, like the idea of the process you have to build to grade comic books, that is not going to be a cheap process. Like, it's going to be expensive. So,
well, the question is why are you grading the book? If you're grading it because you want to have every, like, Mint Hunter has every Green Lantern book graded, like, that's an undertaking, and you don't care when they come back, right? But if you have your X-Men 1, or you have that Archie comic that you had, or a Phantom Lady, or something Golden Age that's expensive, and you want back quickly, then that's the reason to grade, and that's why you want it back, and you're willing to pay for it. But if, like, that's the difference in services, like Quick, like say they're located in every state, and there's a guy or gal that will grade them for you there. The rest that can be sent somewhere else because Dan just wants every Mark Jewelers graded and sent in all at once, right? Whereas we might want something bigger done, and that's why that person comes to the house, picks them up, or meet them at a location at a comic book store. They take them and they grade them at their their work from home shop. So
Yeah, I'm with Noah here too. Like, it's just like at the end of the day, the books that I would want graded, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to try and find them already slabbed to not have to go through that
But
hassle.
if you find a book, like Mike and I are out like flea markets and auctions and whatnot, you find a book there, like you might have to get it graded because you aren't going to find the same one somewhere else.
Yeah, and in that scenario, if you're talking like a high dollar book, JP.
Yeah.
In that scenario, though, you probably would have to go like through the walkthrough tier, which is still, you know, you will get it back relatively quickly. Which, yeah, that's why when I think about it, like if I had a book that was raw that I would think was worth graded, it's going to be in that walkthrough tier. And so I don't think a lot of the stuff we've talked about would apply there because it would be back pretty quickly because it's going walkthrough. When I think about like, because they make a lot of money, obviously grading, you know, $100 books and $200 books, which is what a lot of people are sending. That's where I'm just like, that's not a sustainable practice right now.
Yep. No way.
I don't need every book graded, just the big ones, I think. Unless you're trying to make a collection of X-Men or a collection of I have a bunch of the Image comics from the 90s I want to get graded, all the newsstand versions. I'd love to get graded. I'm just not going to spend $20 a book to get them graded right now.
I agree. I'm 100% with you on that, GB. Like I've mentioned this before, like my floor would be like $3,000 for me to think, oh, I need to grade this book. But I mean, at the end of the day, really what it comes down to is a lot of people just love slabbed books, right? When they go through those lists of like the most graded books every month, it's like X-Men 1, the first Omega Red, like all these books that we see common. People love grid because they love slabs. And so that's one thing I just doesn't get for me.
What about the comic capsules? Anyone have any comic capsules that they use?
I do, but I hate them.
Okay.
I use them for like pictures and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering, because if you can get the comic capsule, I think maybe it's having that hard plastic you're holding and you think it's indestructible. That's why if
protection is your big reason, again, I've said this before, like a CGC slab or any slab from any grading company, it's not like it's any more premium than a top loader and a Mylar or something like that. Like
that's what almost all, these are all Mylars and top loaders.
Yeah, like you could get protection. Again, it's like you're not getting any of that UV protection. If you drop it on the floor, the case is going to crack. As Manu's talked about before, the book can get jammed up into the corner. Like a CGC slab is not some foolproof protection piece. Like you could protect your book at a fifth of the cost of what it costs to grade the book.
And we can go all in depth into that based on just check out the previous video about when to grade on the
there you go.
Absolute Gaming Nerds channel. We went through all of this stuff about all those different
but
I am interested though. Sorry,
no, go.
Mike just mentioned is the first person I've ever heard say he's not into the comic capsules. I hear all these people and I assume they're sponsored by Comic Capsule that say they love them. I haven't seen them before. What's wrong with them? You're sponsored, Big Nasty, aren't you?
There's one reason why I don't like comic capsules. I don't like putting a comic book directly into something else. I like to have it in a poly bag first. And the comic capsule is so tight that you can't put a bag on it. It has to go directly, unless you get like a size larger than the book you want to put in. But when you get most of the standard ones, it's exact size. Not only that, there's a static electricity that happens when it's not in the bag. And it kind of clings. So if you ever go to take it out, you can see that cover kind of sticks. It's a bad idea. Also, if it's a signed book, I have some books that are signed. I don't like the idea of having the ink against the plastic. So like, there's a lot of reasons. And they're really
will it not fit if you put it in a bag first?
No, not the ones I have. I'm sure I can get a different size one, but every single one I have does not fit.
Interesting. Okay, I assumed it was like a card where you put it in a penny sleeve and then you put it in a top. I figured that's what the case was with the top loader or the comic capsule.
Is it?
Yeah. And in Ryan's point, I also think they look a little cheap and a little flimsy.
Yeah. And this is why I like, to me, my favorite way a book looks is what you were just talking about, Mike. You got the nice Mylar, maybe put it in a top loader. Like that is beautiful to me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something amazing about a book and a Mylar. You know, they makes them look so much better, but there's just something about them. There's something about them. It's just, they're crisp, they're sharp. You don't feel bad that you can't remove it. They're just,
I will say another option too with the Mylar is there's a shop by me that does it. They do like if you have a Silver Age book, they'll use a Silver Age like Mylar that's like the 2 mil thickness.
Yeah.
But then they'll put that in a 4 mil golden age Mylar, and that gets very rigid. And like that is, and it looks great
with the clear backs. Like,
yeah, oh, with a clear back too.
Yeah,
I love
awesome.
the clear back.
That's one problem I have these 4 mil Mylars. They're super thick, and if you slide a book down, it'll tear it like a goddamn razor.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's why they put the 2 mil first, and then they put it in the 4 mil.
That makes sense. I was like, I almost screwed up one of my books. I did screw it up by putting it in there. So
sure,
yeah.
That's where I prefer the top loader for that reason, just because like I have some golden age, but then you got to find a golden age top loader and a golden age what do you call it? Bag. Sleeve, put it in. So
and that's the other issue too. Like the Silver Age, like my poly bags, like are if you had a Mylar, I mean they're like 2 millimeters too big to fit in
the top loader. I know, it drives me crazy.
Crazy.
Like, how are they not making a top loader to fit that?
I know. It kills me.
It drives me crazy.
Drives me crazy. And so like you'll see, like I kind of ran out of top loaders. Every once in a while I buy some more, but I had a whole bunch of books, like DC ones, and they were just like in a really nice Mylar, and that would be up there when I ran out, and because I couldn't put them in anything else.
Yeah.
But they still look spectacular.
Well, and then it comes down to if the book you have is let's say it's a Silver Age, Weird Tales that are thicker books. You know, they don't fit easily in a Mylar, and a Silver Age Mylar, you got to get a Golden Age one.
Yeah, and every of those comic capsules I have can only take standard like modern comics. I can't use thicker ones at all.
So like, could your GSX-1 be in a comic capsule?
They must make them. Ask Big Nasty. They must make them larger for those games.
If he's using like the standard bags and boards for like a current issue, you know, that should fit in a top loader pretty normally, but it's like the Silver Age, or if you're using a Silver Age bag and board, which I usually do for all my Bronze Age, pretty much all my stuff is Silver Age. They don't fit in those, just barely don't fit.
Yeah.
In the top loader, that is.
Yeah. Let me ask this now, or do you want to make one other point, JP?
No, I'm good.
I was going to say, were there any other storylines in 2024 in the comic book hobby that were not related to CGC or comic grading? Any thoughts there?
I think it was interesting that we only had one major comic book movie. And, you know, we talk about that driving the speculation and stuff like that. We only had one movie. This is like the least we've had in a long time. So obviously Daredevil and Wolverine.
Deadpool and Wolverine.
What'd I say? Yeah, sorry.
Daredevil.
Yeah, I'm tired. I have stupid Baldur's Gate, man. I haven't slept.
Is
that but TV was good. We had you know, the Penguin. I finally caught him the Penguin.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to go next. Like, go around. Like, so, Mike, why don't you start since you're already here? What were your highlights on screen from the related IPs of this hobby?
It's X-Men 97, full stop. I mean, come on, it's not even close. I mean, not just because I'm an X-Men fan. I think it was the best made thing that Disney has done since acquiring Marvel. It's up there. It was so well made and so entertaining. It was great for nostalgia for people who had watched it when they were kids. It was great for new people. My kids loved it, and it was fantastic. That's my highlight, absolutely. And it's funny. Sometimes I'm poking around TV. Just check Disney Plus, see anything new. Nothing jumps out to me. And I'm like, ooh, I'll watch another episode. I'll watch that Gambit episode over and over again, man. That last 10 minutes of that it's a freaking cartoon. And I've never been moved more by a superhero thing.
I mean,
I just got goosebumps thinking about it.
It is absolute top-notch writing.
Unreal.
It's unreal how, and like JP, I know you're against animated things, but
I'm not against them. I just can't get into it. I can't feel
it is so well done. Like
Isn't JP watching Attack on Titans? Is that?
I'm being made to watch that.
Forced to by daughter.
He's being forced against his will. But like, if you go back a year and tell me,
they got this thing.
X-Men 97 is going to come out. You're not only just going to be entertained by it, but your jaw's going to drop multiple times. I sat there in silence for about a minute.
Yeah.
I just jumped and said, "Holy shit!" And it was a cartoon. It's a freaking cartoon, man. Blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. So that was my highlight, entertainment-wise. Penguin was fantastic. Deadpool and Wolverine was all right.
Well, real quick, I do want to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine, but I want to talk since you brought up Penguin. Let's just spend it. JP, you watched Penguin. Dan, you did not watch Penguin, correct?
No. Correct.
What's wrong with you, Ken? You can watch a cartoon, but you can't watch a real movie.
Dan hasn't even watched The Dark Knight. So like,
I don't watch.
Don't even like. We can't even get started there.
Yeah, don't even get me started with this. Yeah.
But what I
No
told
wonder
people
we
when we did the Penguin review episode, what I said was like, when it comes to this comic book kind of hobby, and I think of shows or movies, I don't necessarily need like Oscar-worthy type films. Like, there's a few things I want to see and I want to be entertained, and I'm like, oh, that was great, right? But Penguin was an objectively fantastic show, I thought. Like, I mean, it really, I mean, and then what's her, Christine Milioti? Like, it's called The Penguin, but that woman steals the show.
Yep.
And is incredible. I mean, it is so good.
There were some small parts with that bugged me that I made nitpicky on, Oh, by the way, Colin Farrell just won Golden Globe.
Yeah, the Golden Globe. I saw that. Yeah.
I knew how could he not? That was nuts.
Yeah.
My wife, she walked in one time and I said, yeah, that's Colin. She's like, no, it's not. I'm like, no, it is. Like, I don't believe you. I'm like, no.
Yeah,
they did a great job. I'm always cynical when people get awards when they have a ton of makeup on. Like, what was that? Oh, and Celine Theron was
Monster.
Monster, yeah. Like, they make anyone ugly, like normally, like they usually win. But no, he was amazing. But that show, just like I was absolutely transfixed by it. Like, and it's great because Rohan, I'm pretty picky about my TV shows. We nitpicked, to death. Another highlight would be, House of the Dragon. So I was dragged my feet on Penguin, and there was a couple episodes I was kind of like, all right, let's, I didn't care so much, but the quality never ever dipped. I mean, it was rock solid.
And that ending that last episode was incredible.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And now the last 15 minutes might be my favorite part of that entire season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But okay, I did definitely wanted to spend some time on Wolverine and Deadpool. I think, Mike, you're going to definitely feel a lot about how I feel about this movie. I'm interested to hear what JP and Dan think. So first off, I think it was one of the most fun movie experiences I've had within the MCU. I mean, I was laughing my ass off. I absolutely loved it. And I would still say to this day, like, it's a great, enjoyable movie. That being said, if we were to actually evaluate it from is this a good film perspective, I really think it's quite thin and there's really not much substance there. And one thing that really kind of worries me about the future of where we're going in the MCU is because it was such a great commercial success, I'm worried the suits at Disney are going to use that to make decisions for the future, right? I totally understand, and I'm on board with Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Dr. Doom. I get why they do it. They need something to kind of bring people back. But now we're talking like Chris Evans is now going to come back. They're talking about using Wesley Snipes as Blade. Don't get me wrong, I loved seeing Wesley Snipes coming in the cameo. Do I need to see him as Blade in the MCU?
An 80-year-old man? No.
Exactly. No, I do not. Like, I loved Channing
We need
Tatum in that
Jennifer
movie.
Garner back. I would prefer that. She could be in the show.
I mean, like, Channing Tatum now is supposedly the
best Gambit ever. Come on now.
I thought he was hilarious, but he's not Gambit to me. No. And they're using things from that movie as like, this is the formula for success. And I worry that's going to then take precedence over good writing and quality filmmaking.
You nailed it, Rohan. So, like, one of the most enjoyable. I had a great time. I laughed. I absolutely enjoyed it. But the problem with that movie, all the Deadpool movies for me, is that they always kind of wear thin on me. Like, that's really funny for an hour and a half. It's the same jokes. Like, I know it's coming. The cameos, they're really cool, except when they're coming. Like, they lose their luster. And so, like, you can't get me to cheer that many times, like in a movie theater. It's like, oh, that's another one. They oversaturate the novelty of it. The novelty is completely gone. My favorite part of that movie is the fact that Hugh Jackman, and honestly, Ryan Reynolds is pretty darn good, but Hugh Jackman, it was like he was going for an Oscar. Like, the guy did not care that he was in a silly movie. That was the most compelling part. Those are my favorite parts, when it was serious. And the jokey thing has been a criticism of the MCU. But when we talk about the best MCU movies, the humor is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
I'm nervous they're going to keep ratcheting that up, and the whole multiversal thing, the cameo thing. Same thing that Sony wants to do with everything with Spider-Man. They want to be multiverse now. They saw the success with No Way Home and with, Across the Spider-Verse. And now, you hear what's going on behind the scenes. Marvel wanted a grounded Spider-Man. That's where they sort of left it off. Hang out with Daredevil, do something cool against the Kingpin. But no, they want to do more multiversal shenanigans because they know that makes money. So I think we're going to have more cameos, more jokes, and more just
you can get away with so much shit.
There's no stakes. And there's definitely no stakes in Deadpool and Wolverine, especially when you have two immortal characters leading it. So
yeah, and I said this in our thread. I have zero desire to watch it again. Like
I did with my wife. Oh, really?
Three times.
I watched it again with my wife, and
here's how I view it. We all have that one friend or any of your friends who you find funny. He just says the same shit every time. He has the same way about it. Maybe it's me, maybe it's somebody else. So I like to watch Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. They make me laugh. His humor I find entertaining. So I could watch any movie he's in just because I'm not saying I click with him, but I click with that humor style. So I could watch a movie, so I like it. It's like having a friend who always says the same thing. He's always, the golfing buddy or you name it, the comic book guy, whoever it may be. So,
well, JD, let me ask you then. Let me ask you. This is actually a good question. What is your favorite part of that movie? Name like one thing. What's your favorite part?
End whenever Wolverine's shirt is off and they're doing that thing.
Answer the question seriously, though.
I would have to say the beginning scene, the bye in sync is great with just the humor of it and the way the camera went around and the whole fight scene itself, and then the fights with Wolverine and Deadpool in the Honda, and just in general the bicker back and forth. I don't have one favorite scene, but I just enjoy the bickering of those guys back and forth, like two best friends who hate each other but love each other. It's
but
just
JP, kind of what you said is, it's because it's Ryan Reynolds, because you like his humor. If they try and do that same thing with other people that aren't Ryan Reynolds, do you think it's going to work?
I don't think that style will work. Like Robert Downey Jr. works. He has like a Jeff Goldblum way of talking. Like Jeff Goldblum is annoying, but I love
Jeff Goldblum.
But I like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Like he's perfect for that role. Ryan Reynolds is perfect for Deadpool. Hugh Jackman for Wolverine. Like you find somebody else who mirrors that role or who plays it perfectly, you don't mind watching it a bunch of times. Chris Evans is a great golden boy.
I will say, since you mentioned it, I love Hugh Jackman. I love Hugh Jackman as the Wolverine. Not going to lie, though, I was actually really looking forward to seeing who would get recast as Wolverine. I don't love the idea now that Kevin Feige is saying, like, Hugh Jackman's the Wolverine for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my personal opinion.
Yep. And you say that about any of the characters coming back. If they keep any of those old guards, like I have a hard time seeing them recast, like hopefully they don't recast Iron Man. It'll happen someday when we're old, hopefully. But no, don't. Just move on for the Fox legacy characters. Like when the multiverse is like over, like that was 20 years ago. They were 20 years old, those characters. So it's
and Richard brought this up earlier. Or go ahead, JP.
I was gonna say it'll show in the most recent and the upcoming Marvel movie with the Red Hulk Captain America movie. If people sour on a new Captain America, if the movie doesn't do great, that's why I think they're hinting for Chris Evans to come back in some fashion, whether it be Nomad or Captain America, a multiverse Captain America, because they're sort of seeing how it's going to go down.
No, but I don't think that's a problem with people liking it on it because they're going to make a bad movie. A lot of the backlash you have, people wanting to bring Marvel back to its glory days, is because they haven't been doing a good job.
Yeah,
it's not the actor's fault. Like people crap all over Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. Like I think Brie Larson's an incredible actress. I don't like her as Captain Marvel, but she's a great actress. It's not her fault that the movies aren't that good. But people I hate that character. Right. It's like that's not her fault, and people. I feel like she gets a lot of backlash on it. I'm worried about Anthony Mackie because I think he's a fantastic Falcon.
Well, I think he's a great actor. I like him as Falcon, but I think when they change it, that may have backlash for stupid reasons. So that may be why again they're bringing RDJ back to play Doom. They couldn't find anyone else to play Doom.
I do think though I am a I'm a firm believer that we love these characters. We've loved these actors that play these characters, but we love these characters more. if they're done
Yeah.
right, if they're written well, we won't care who's. I mean, take a look at Batman, for instance. Like, I love Christian Bale as Batman. I now love Robert Pattinson as Batman. I love Michael Keaton as Batman, right? No one's sitting there being like, you couldn't recast Batman, right? But when the movies have been well, we've loved that version of Batman.
Mhm.
And that's why I was really excited to see recently this week. It came out that they are going to recast T'Challa, which is what I wanted from the beginning. Just very sad Chadwick Boseman passed away, right? But to me, that does not mean that character now can't be used, right? I'm all for recasting.
Yeah.
And people will, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, but I fully believe they will get over that hurdle of like, hey, that's not RDJ, that's not Chadwick Boseman, or whoever the case may be, if the movie is made well, is written well, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. If it's good, people don't care. And by the way, Wakanda Forever would have been a better movie had they recast T'Challa. Everyone wants to see T'Challa against Namor. It would have been fantastic. In that movie, it's still a good movie. I mean, it's not a stinker, but I keep thinking the what if scenario, like what could have been, and they were trying to honor his legacy, but like in some ways, it's sort of dishonoring his legacy by saying, you know what, the character's gone. You can't do that. It's the character he built up and made famous. You got to keep that character alive for people in the future. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. I understood they did it out of love, but that's another movie that, could have been better. Unforeseen circumstances. Marvel's gone the short end of the stick a lot because of the whole COVID production delays, the actor strike, the writer strike. I mean, all of those things kind of led to the issue there. They made a ton of too many shows and stuff. Some of them haven't even been released yet. This is stuff that should be going away after 5 years now. So maybe we are moving to the better movies, but they kind of have to start off strong with Captain America and Thunderbolts. People can say Marvel's dead again.
I'm looking forward to seeing the Red Hulk. I'm looking even more forward to seeing the Sentry in the Thunderbolts. I think they need someone of that magnitude to handle what's coming up next, and I think that's going to be awesome. So I'm looking forward to those two movies.
As much as we look forward to these movies coming down the pipeline, does anybody really think that we're ever going to come back to those type of glory days that was when everybody who didn't know anything about comics were all of a sudden huge comic fans because of the movies?
I think so. Here's my thought on this, right? Disney did not buy, and I've said this before, it's not the first time I said it, and I may not even be the only one that says it, but Disney did not buy Marvel to make the Infinity Saga and then stop, right? They bought Marvel because they thought they could make movies for decades to come. To expect them to maintain an Infinity Gauntlet run level of consistency and quality for the next 50 years is ludicrous. Like, it was bound to go down. It's bound, I think, to come back up. And guess what? It'll go down again. It'll come up. Like, if we look at this over the long haul, there's going to be peaks and valleys, just like with anything, because no one can just you can't just hit home runs every single at bat, right? There's going to be misses. There's going to be, and they'll learn from those, et cetera, et cetera. And again, as I've mentioned before, we've all talked about in our threads before, why I want, like, Colossus is here, and I know he's been dogging the Superman trailer and things like that, but we were talking the other day, no matter what, if you are a MCU fan, you want Superman to be great because it will force Marvel to up their game. Because again, just like with CGC, right? We've talked about PSA. We need someone to hold them accountable, right? You need the same thing here, right? Iron sharpens iron. Not to mention, and if Superman is great, all that's going to do is encourage more people who aren't the four of us that have YouTube streams about comics go to these types of movies. That's only going to benefit all of the, what is the tide? The tide raising all ships. What's that line?
Tide raising all ships. Not only that, people should always root for movies to do well because it helps the movie industry, right? Like, if one movie does well, you guys know we've had years where they're just stinkers and no one goes, and then you have like the Barbie Oppenheimer thing, and all of a sudden everyone's going back to the movies again. Like, it's good for the whole industry if they're good, and also shows people that you make good movies, people go to see them.
Thank you.
That's why you see Sony. I mean, not Sony. Sony with all the other Spider-Man films. What happened with Craven and stuff, like, I think they realized too late, like, you just can't keep putting this stuff out to keep a license.
I do think it's funny, by the way, this whole last week, the Sony CEO has been putting out statements like, these are actually good movies. They just got panned by the media. It's like, bro, shut up. Like you're like what's his face to the DC Zack Snyder, who's still crying that his movies are actually good and people are just hating on him. Like, no, sometimes you got to wake up and smell the coffee, bro.
Yep.
And speaking of that, I want to mention one thing that came up about Superman is I don't know if you guys know Screen Crush. You ever watch Screen Crush on YouTube?
Is that like a channel? Okay, no, I haven't.
YouTube channel where he reviews movies, like a lot of them. He did a review of Christopher Reeves, because someone mentioned Christopher Reeves in the chat here, Superman versus Henry Cavill, and why they are different, and why Henry Cavill is a better Superman than, or Reeves is a better Superman than Henry Cavill. And check it out, because it shows that Zack Snyder dark twist and how Christopher Reeves was that golden boy that Superman hopefully will be when the new movie comes out. And that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, definitely a different tone.
I don't think anyone on planet Earth thinks that Henry Cavill is a better Superman than Christopher Reeve.
I mean, he fits the role and everything, but like some people just said, people were pissed that they took Henry Cavill out. They didn't keep him. I mean, I liked him, but no one beats Christopher Reeves. No one beats Ben Affleck. No. It's Batman.
But again, JP, why you like Christopher Reeves is because they did the character justice, right? Henry Cavill was born to be Superman on screen. It just sucks that they didn't write Superman for him.
They wrote Superman as a someone in today's age with a negative tone. Like
what happened with Superman is exactly what I'm fearing with what I talked about with Deadpool and Wolverine. Superman came on the heels of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. And if you remember, after those movies ended, all the DC and Warner Brothers executives came out and said, we want to make a Superman film, but a more grittier version of Superman. And they were saying that because of how successful the Dark Knight trilogy was. That's not Superman. Superman's not dark and gritty. That's not the character.
Exactly what that Screen Crush video shows, that the Henry Cavill Superman was one that helped because he wanted to, not because he felt compelled to. Like, he felt compelled to do it, not because internally he was built to do that, right? Mm-hmm. He did it out of spite in a sense, but it wasn't out of any moral. He explains it much better than I can, but it was very interesting to take the Nolan twist and move it into what you're talking about.
We got to save money on the budget.
I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of people that said.
Also, go watch the Christopher Reeves documentary on Max.
HBO,
If you put a tear.
Yeah, I've been meaning to see it,
dude. That's the thing. Is
like, will cry if you watch this. It was a tough
Colossus also first needs to just watch the Christopher Reeves movie first and foremost.
Oh, he didn't watch that?
No, he's not seen them. He's completely said he's never watched them. But again, like, that was Superman done correctly, and it was awesome. And like, people says this, a lot of people loved the trailer. A lot of people thought it was very cheap looking. I thought the trailer, like, I loved the look of Superman. Like, I thought I loved that there was a lot of bright colors. It made me think of the actual Superman. So I have great hope that movie hits a home run.
Right. In my mind growing up, maybe it's because I watched, the DC cartoons there, but like Marvel was the darker, more mature one, more serious one. And DC was the more fun or more fantastical, bright colors. I picture Metropolis. It's a shining utopia, big skyscraper. It's got an Art Deco look to it. Gotham's, like the Gothic, they have a certain look to them. The Justice League. When I saw Zack Snyder, I was like, what are you guys doing? No. DC, if I want to watch some serious, crazy stuff, I want Marvel. You guys are supposed to be the fun one. But then Marvel was going hardcore and darker and grittier. And I thought like, Marvel's going funner, like funnier and jokier and stuff. And I thought they were kind of like flip-flop. But this is why I'm hoping, you're right, the aesthetic of just in that trailer, I thought was pretty good. I don't know if Corn Sweat looks like Superman to me, but, he'll change my mind. It doesn't help that I've said this in the past. There's a fully, I'm married to a beautiful woman, but Henry Cavill is like one of those objectively gorgeous men in the world. Like, my wife told me she would leave me in a heartbeat. Like, I don't, and he is awesome. Like, he's a nerd. He likes nerd games. This is true. When a woman walks in the room, he stands up. Might seem a little pandering, but women love that sort of stuff. He's a gentleman. He's a good guy. You root for him. So when the movie fails, I feel so bad for Henry Cavill, and I feel that ill will towards the people who did that to him. I think it's going to unfortunately carry over to Corn Sweat. Because
Mike, have you heard that story of Henry Cavill's nephew he was in like, I don't know, 4th grade or something like that, would tell his class, like apparently like he was a kid that would tell a lot of, stories and embellish and blah, blah, but he would tell people, my uncle is Superman.
Yeah.
And he got like a letter sent home by the teacher, like, hey, your son is kind of a storyteller, blah, 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 blah. And, now he's telling people his uncle is Superman, and blah, and his mom wrote back like, well, that actually, I understand he's a storyteller, but like, that is the one true thing. And his teacher was like, come on. And so Henry Cavill walked this kid to school. Like,
In
you
costume.
cannot love that guy.
Right, in costume, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
no, I don't think it was in costume. I don't know if
No.
it was in costume, but like, it doesn't matter. Like, when he shows up, that that's Superman. Like, he just,
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
he
do
was
feel
so
bad
bad.
for him. So
He's someone definitely to root for, and I hope, like Colossus said, he comes over to the MCU. There's probably a good Captain Britain role for him, or what we'll see.
he's too big. I feel like he would be a great Captain Britain, but he's just too big, and he's literally too big for Wolverine. He wasn't very convincing as Wolverine as that. But that was my favorite part of the movie, by the way, was the montage.
The montage. Yeah.
I would love to see him in the MCU. I just don't know what role it'd be. Captain
Well,
Britain.
Richard says Colossus.
Oh. How about that,
Can he do a good
Ryan?
Russian accent? I sincerely hope they do. So wait, I want to go back real quick.
He
Rohan,
can do
you
that,
said
yeah.
you will be great again. I think after the multiverse phase, when they have the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and the Avengers and hopefully Spider-Man, then you will have the best MCU. I think you absolutely can, and they'll probably recast a lot of roles, but I think it'll be the best going forward.
And I will say with that, Mike, you said like, I do think even though we have 3 movies coming out this year with Captain America, Thunderbolts, and then Fantastic Four, at least in terms of Marvel, I think it is all hinged on Fantastic Four.
It is
like,
100%.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Captain America can be meh, even though I think the trailer looks cool. Thunderbolts can be meh, even though I think the trailer looks cool. If Fantastic Four hits, I think, that
all will be forgiven.
All will be forgiven.
Yeah.
Like, again, like Marvel has a few, they have dozens of characters and IPs, but there are a handful of tentpole genre IPs, right? Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four. Those are the tentpoles of Marvel. You hit those, everything else falls into place.
Right, I agree. And and the way I like about the Fantastic Four is, with the exception of the lead, Mr. Fantastic, they cast relatively unknown people. They're not superstars. I think this has also been a problem for Marvel moving forward. They keep trying to cast big people. Why the casting worked so well earlier, with the exception of like Robert Downey Jr., that like they didn't cast gigantic people, and that's what worked. I wanted them to, like, when they cast the X-Men, I don't want to know who these people are. I want an actor from Germany who plays Nightcrawler. I want a Russian guy playing Colossus. I want people I don't know, and we can learn to love those actors. There is in Hollywood this thing, like, it seems like there's only 10 people who ever get hired for freaking anything, which is why the whole Robert Downey Jr. thing kind of bugs me. It's like, there are plenty of capable actors to do this job, so there must be something in story of why. I refuse to believe, he's going to be Victor Von Doom and anyone can do that. No, I don't believe that for a second. It doesn't make any sense. I would much rather have cast some German Romanian guy or something.
Yeah, I agree. I don't need the big blockbuster actors. I agree with you on that.
You get other people a lot cheaper too, obviously.
Yeah. One thing I want to talk about.
Just to follow up, just the last part about, you were saying that it's all hinging on the Fantastic Four movie. That you're right. That's got to be good. And also, Colossus was saying, and I'm hearing a lot of chatter about how important this movie is, Superman is for the DC universe, and James Gunn. It has to be really good, because
it has to be.
He's getting the best DC character. It's James Gunn. Everybody points to, he made people care about, Holly just said he made people care about Guardians of the Galaxy. In my opinion, that was a lightning in the bottle situation. And yes, James.
Yeah, this is exactly where I was going to go.
There's so much writing on this to be the hot shit that, like, if it's not, because the hype is big, then that's got to be it.
Even James Gunn has come out and said he understands the pressure that is on for the Superman, and he definitely has concern about that. The thing is everyone is right. Like, the lightning in a bottle thing you mentioned, right? He's nailed Guardians. I've actually really enjoyed the Creature Commandos cartoon. I don't know if any of you guys have been watching that. It's been kind of fun. Peacemaker. But the thing is he's nailed these non tier one quirky characters. What do you ever call it? Superman is his first ever take on a A tier, S tier, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah, yeah.
character,
you-
right?
have-
And
have
Have you
so
guys
I
seen the movie-
don't
have you
know
guys
if
seen
it's
the movie Brightburn.
what's that?
Have you seen the movie Brightburn?
No.
Brightburn.
It's a James
I-
Gunn movie. Go ahead, Mike.
I haven't seen it, but I don't want to see it.
Well,
What about it,
it's a dark take on Superman. It's a James Gunn produced movie. I think he wrote it. I'm not sure if he directed it, but it's basically if Superman landed on this earth today and he became bad, how would it go down? And
Mm.
it's a tough take to watch, but
haven't seen it.
he can handle it. So I think based on that movie,
Yeah, and I will say, like, when James Gunn, I think it's now been 2 years since when he came out and he put out that video where he kind of mapped out the first 10 years of the DCU. I thought that sounded fantastic, and that gave me confidence. But I don't equate success with Guardians and Peacemaker as success with Superman. I think these are two completely different ballparks.
100%.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the best, but I feel like I'm also the kind of person that hates like overhyped stuff. Like I will go in a little more cynical. So I like to not know much, or just kind of like, I hope it's good and, you know, let's just see what happens. But when you tell me it's going to be the best thing ever, you know, my expectations are risen, you know, so I'm hoping for the best.
the thing of it is we're coming off the Snyderverse, which wasn't terrible, but it wasn't the best. So we have had
No, it was
Superman
terrible.
since
The Snyderverse was bad.
Ben Affleck was the best Batman, as far as I'm concerned.
I think Ben
You know,
Affleck, JB, I'm not saying that the cat, like, again, I think Henry Cavill is born to be Superman. I liked Ben Affleck's Batman. You know, I was actually excited when Ben Affleck was going to direct a Batman movie. Like, I'm upset that didn't happen. And in Superman versus Batman, the best scene in that shit ass movie is that scene when Batman comes in and whoops the crap out of those bad guys that are holding Martha Kent. Like, that scene is excellent. And that's what I would want. But then the rest of it was all garbage.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that there are the Guardians of the Galaxy. We didn't have that. You know, you never had those characters. So we had Superman, 10 years ago, 8 years ago. We had Spider-Man. The first Spider-Man was 2001, right? Prior to that, there was really no movie, maybe in the 70s. You know, Superman 77 through 83, 85 before we got Superman Returns. So, like, this isn't a character we haven't seen in a while. Whereas X-Men, we've seen, but it's going to be about 10 years before you've seen X-Men by the time the movie comes out. So there'll be anticipation and there'll be a clean slate. Whereas this isn't exactly a clean slate. There's too much of a Henry Cavill overlap to get to this point. So that might be where some of the rub comes. But if you had a completely new character we have not seen on screen yet, I mean, that can be mind-blowing for that sense that you have not seen them on screen.
I will. Let me add this real quick with Superman,
Like
the
Lobo.
Superman talk. With the Superman
I
talk.
knew you were going to say that,
Yeah.
Jake.
With the Superman talk. I'm sure many of you here didn't watch it. It's a CW show and it's made with CW production quality. But Superman and Lois is a fantastic Superman show. Like, it is, like, the stories are great. Tyler Hoechlin's a great Superman. Like, it is very, like, I would highly recommend. Again, it is definitely got CW quality in terms of the special effects and production value. But take that away, it is a good show. And he is a great Superman. So if you're into Superman, I would recommend watching that show. Just throwing that out there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hopefully, JP, they overcome the fact that we've seen it recently by a different aesthetic. The fact that it looks completely different and it has a built-in universe already, I think, is going to be the one thing that will set it apart. I'm hoping that at least is the idea behind it. I still have my doubts. I hope people just don't get their hopes too up, because even if it's good, they're still going to be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're also coming off a pretty big lag in comic book movies and shows, and at least in movies. Only one last year. Last year, there was nothing really great. Ant-Man, Wasp, the Kang thing all fell apart. Henry Cavill got taken out. Like, a lot of bad things happened. So we're kind of been in waiting for this stuff to come about. So I think it's a lot of anticipation, not just for the movie, but just since it's been a while since we're waiting for this whole reset of Marvel and DC. So it's a big year for both.
It's a big year. I mean, because, I mean, and we'll talk about this more next week in our kind of look ahead show. But I mean, yeah, the movies, the Daredevil show, there's a lot of good stuff coming out in 2025. real quick, we're kind of coming up on the hour and a half mark. We can kind of wind this down. I am curious just to go around the room real quick. I just want to know, were there any other, they don't necessarily, I'm not talking about like the Oscar winning movies, but like anything kind of in this genre, I think that you would recommend, even if it's outside of like Marvel and DC. There's two I would recommend. Mike and I talked about them a lot. We did episodes on House of the Dragon. I thought wasn't, there was some issues we had, but I thought I still loved it. And then the absolute best thing on screen, and it's justifiably winning every single award it's nominated for. If you have not watched Shogun, that should be your number one priority. That show is so good. The quality is so high. The writing is phenomenal. The acting is phenomenal. Do yourself a favor if you have not watched it. Jump on Hulu, subscribe for a month. That show is excellent.
Yep, you can actually watch it through Disney Plus now because they have the Hulu add-on.
Oh yeah, there you go. Have you watched it, Mike?
I haven't. I know I don't like it. I just I'm waiting for the right moment.
Did you watch it, Dan?
No, but I do plan on watching it. I always wait for everybody else to watch it first. Give me the
JP,
goods,
did you watch it at all? I know Ryan watched it. He and I, we did a little review episode on it. I know he was the one guy I was talking to. So good. I could not recommend anything higher. I'm just curious,
Awesome.
before we jump off here, anything else you guys would recommend anyone jumping on?
I cannot remember 2024 at all.
I would recommend watching Tulsa King. That was a good one.
Tulsa King? What is that on?
Oh, that's with Stallone, right?
Yep. So it's on Paramount Plus or you can
got it. Is that a Taylor Sheridan show?
I don't think so. It's the Sly Stallone.
He's the guy that
like,
no. Taylor Sheridan's like the showrunner. He does like
Yellowstone.
all those Paramount Plus shows are his.
We
guy
did
who,
watch.
Go ahead.
I would say we watch we don't watch Yellowstone itself, but we do watch the older versions of it, the 1922 and the
prequel one that they did.
Prequel ones. Yeah, we like like history ones, and they're excellent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those are. I haven't seen those yet. I do want to watch them. Tulsa King's a similar type of probably of Yellowstone, similar like infighting, mafia, organized crime type thing. But yeah, other than that, I did watch Shrinking. You guys watch Shrinking on Apple?
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So if you want to see Harrison Ford in a completely different way before you go see him as Red Hulk, watch him in Shrinking.
That's good.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting dichotomy, change whenever you see him as Red Hulk in about a month. So, that was
I did watch a kids show. I believe that it's
X-Men 97.
It came out. No. It came out this year, I believe. KIF. You guys heard of this?
KIF.
Fantastic. Great voices, hilarious, I think, and great to watch with the kids. Very entertaining.
I did go see with my kids. We took them to go see Wild Robot. That was excellent as well.
I heard it was good.
I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, that is excellent. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Mike, Dan, thanks so much for joining us. For those listening, thanks for all the people that have joined us and engaged in the comments.
Absolutely.
And next week, we're going to have Spro and his father-in-law, Mr. Longbox, join us for the 2025 look ahead. We'll get into a lot of the stuff that we talked about with Superman and Fantastic Four. We'll go a little bit more into that kind of stuff and the year in collecting that we're hoping to have and all that good stuff. So hopefully y'all can join us next week.
All right,
excellent. I'll be there.
JP, you want to take us out?
Yep. Peace out, everyone. Remember, always believe in yourself.